Part of me delights in something that's just not going to work out.
Hey all, what's going on? I'm Alisa Rosenthal with Chicago Humanities, and thank you for tuning into Chicago Humanities Tapes. This is our premiere episode of our brand new culture-filled podcast, bringing you the best of our current season, which is in motion as we speak, along with the most relevant bits of our incredible archive dating back to 1991. Head over to chicagohumanities.org to see more about the very cool speakers we've got coming up. Awesome names including Stacey Abrams, Andy Cohen, Joan Baez. A really great season. Definitely check it out. So what you're going to hear today is one of my favorite events from our spring 2022 season. It's Bob Odenkirk chatting with fellow Saturday Night Live alum and all-around sweetheart to Chicago, Tim Meadows, about finding your voice in comedy. You probably know Bob Odenkirk best from AMC's Better Call Saul.
Jimmy, what's going on in there? Jimmy!
Oh, you could hear this through the door? I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
What do you think you're doing?
I took your advice. I'm blowing off steam.
Blowing off steam?
Yeah, like you and your guitar, you know? I gotta say, you're right. I mean, it really helps with stress. I know I don't sound very good, but I'm just learning. I heard that the key is you have to keep this bag inflated.
Enough! Put that down.
Odenkirk grew up in the Chicago suburb of Naperville, Illinois. He was one of a lot of kids and shares a lot about his upbringing and also just feeling like he didn't fit in improv or stand-up. So he gets at a lot of really great Chicago comedy history where he talks about Del Close and producing at Second City, but he just felt too weird for stand-up, too weird for improv at this time when it was all really blowing up. He found himself more drawn to classic solo performers like the one-man shows of Bob Newhart, Eric Bogosian. He gives you lots of cool stuff to check out if this piques your interest. You'll hear him talk about the memoir he's just released, Comedy, 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 Drama. He had already released his action movie called Nobody and had his life-altering experience with his heart attack. He's about to drop the 6th season of Better Call Saul. You know him, you love him. He's an Emmy-winning writer, Golden Globe-nominated actor, comedian, and director. It's Bob Odenkirk in conversation with Tim Meadows at Chicago's historic movie theater, the Music Box Theater. Enjoy.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Odenkirk. Here he is. Hey, Bob. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you.
So Bob, hi.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
It's going good. Well, let's talk about the book. Should we, or should we just...
Yeah, it took forever to write this thing, so please, let's talk about it.
And so, what made you decide to write a memoir, first of all? What made you think that anybody cared? I told Bob before we were having dinner, I said, I'm going to be really mean on stage, so be prepared. I attack.
A couple things happened. I love showbiz memoirs. I kind of read. I've read two Van Halen memoirs. Two
Van Halen biographies?
Well, memoirs, you know, pieces about them, about the band. But my point is I love showbiz memoirs. And so I don't have, you know, I just like reading them. So I thought, you know, I could write one maybe because I've done a lot of stuff. But also my assistant in the 3rd season of Better Call Saul was a woman named Melissa Hyman, who's an improv actress from Albuquerque. And I had a box of pictures that I was taking out of as I was unpacking for the season to start the season. And I started showing her pictures of us backstage at Second City and Del and different shows, Saturday Night Live, me and Smigel and Conan O'Brien and Greg Daniels just at SNL. And I just thought, fuck, there's some stories in here that people like her would love to hear you tell. I had this interaction with Del Close. Just clap if you know who Del Close is. Maybe a little over half the audience. Del was a director at Second City and a teacher. And when I ran into him on Wells Street when I was in college, he had just quit Second City the day before. It was the 5th time he quit, but it was actually still wasn't for good. He came back and
directed. He came back into the show, yeah.
But it was for a long time, and then he started creating the I.O. within the next 2 years, and I said, could I interview you? And he talked to me, and I talk a lot about this in the book, and he talked to me for about 2 hours, and it was an inspiration to me to hear him ramble about his career. And I thought, that inspired me so much, that interaction. Maybe I could do the same thing for some young people. You know, the business is such a strange thing to enter into if you're from Naperville, where I'm from, or anywhere in the Midwest where you're not, or you have no one in your family who's an actor or writer or anything. You know, a lot of things are a mystery, but this business is a particular mystery. It's such a made-up thing. Everything we do is just invented. And so, I don't know, Del talking and rambling through his career to me that day made me feel like it was a realistic thing filled with, experiences that were intriguing. Some of them I'd heard of and knew about. He had been an acting coach at Saturday Night Live, and of course Second City I knew, and he directed there for years and taught. And some of them I'd never heard of. He was talking about off-Broadway show with Larry Hagman, The Nervous Set. He was talking about working with this traveling horror show movie thing. He was talking about working with Elaine May. He was ranging all over this crazy career. Get Smart, the committee, the work that they were doing there in San Francisco. And I didn't know, of course, I'd never heard of the committee. I'd never heard of Elaine May. A lot of these things I didn't know the reference, but it was still in it. I still walked out of there going, I've got to try this. That sounds exciting to me. And I also said to Dave Pasquesi, who's here tonight, one of my castmates from Second City, and maybe the greatest improviser in this room, I bet. I'll put money on that. He made it seem possible, but I'd never, at the time Del was 49, but he looked like he was 70. But I'd never met an older person who was excited about what they were going to do next. Like, he talked to me about this show he was going to start doing at Cross Currents with 2 other performers, and they were going to improvise and write and maybe do monologues mixed with sketches and use the newspaper and bring it to life. And I remember looking at him as he's telling me this and thinking, I've never seen anybody his age tell me what they were going to do in a way that sounded like it might be cool or great, or that they were excited about it. Every older person I knew was trying to play more golf or, get drunk as quickly as they could, as soon, and that's it. And so there was something about his excitement, and I just thought maybe I could borrow that interaction and build on it to write a book. And so this is why I wrote it.
You did. It's great. I mean,
oh, by the way, it ends before the movie Nobody comes out and before my heart attack, because it was supposed to be out a year ago, but the pandemic made us delay shooting the final season of Better Call Saul, and then that took for fucking ever. It's going to be great, but it took for fucking ever. I can't wait for you to see it. I can't wait for you to see it. But everything got very delayed. Mm-hmm. But I also like that it finishes before that movie comes out, because that movie is such an uncertain endeavor. I mean, it really is a crazy roll of the dice that took so much work on my part and sacrifice to make, even though the chances of it fucking up everything and being not good are probably pretty high. Right. But that's where I'm at when I wrote this book. Right. I don't know if it's going to play for people. All I know is we killed ourselves to make it. It took me years to get it made. I had to suffer my wife's scowl every time I walked out of the house because she didn't want me to make an action movie. And she's proud of it now. But she doesn't like action movies, violence, very upsetting to her. And
Well, I think I speak for, you know, probably most of America. Like, when I saw that it was happening, I was like, what the fuck? Because you know, I've known you for a long time. You are I've never even seen you do something athletic in all the time I've known you. So when I saw scenes of you fighting, I was like, what is going on here?
And I was so excited about people like you, Tim, old friends.
Yeah.
Not ironic.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
No winking.
There was no winking at the audience.
The character's not thinking it's funny that he's doing this. I really wanted to risk everything.
Yeah.
And say, you know, look, it's either going to be the hugest mistake I ever made or it might work out.
Yeah.
Better Call Saul and the character I play in that movie, and this was my pitch when I went out to pitch it, is forget the comedy I've done because most people have never seen it. But in Better Call Saul, which plays around the world, it's an earnest guy. He can be very funny, but there's a lot of scenes where he is laying his heart bare and he's getting pushed down, and he never quits. And that's an action lead, except there's no fighting. Right. But otherwise, all that stuff I'm playing and that's connecting with people and who don't know Mr. Show and don't know the comedy I've done, that's how they know me. Yeah. So for them, the only addition is the fighting. Right. And so
that's a big addition, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's like I'm on your side. I'm a fan, so don't, you know. But yeah, but it was like, it was surprising, and you did it. You pulled it off. It wasn't, as the movie went on, it wasn't like, oh, this is impossible that this guy could be doing this. It's like I bought into it, and I know how thin you are, you know. But it was great to see.
You should meet the guy who taught me how to do knife fighting. He's smaller than me, and
he'll cut you.
He'll take you down. I should add in that Ben Greenberg, my editor, called me to say, do you want to write a memoir? So I had these thoughts and these experiences where I thought there's some stories to share with people. And then out of the blue, he called me and said, have you ever thought about writing a memoir? Right. And so I also think a lot of the comedy that I've done, in order for people to have a sense of it, I'd have to write this sooner than later because there's so much pop culture nowadays. Everything gets covered over with another 100 pounds of humor or whatever every day. Yeah. So I had to get to it.
Well, I'm glad you did. Let's talk about some of the early stuff.
Sure.
Do you mind?
Anything.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I found interesting was about growing up. You growing up, and like we have had conversations over the years where we talked about our parents or whatever, but it's always very short. And I was very surprised by the relationship you had with your father and how you talked about it in the book. And the thing that I thought about too was that a lot of people in comedy come from, including myself, backgrounds where when you're going through it, you don't realize how dark or unhealthy it is, and you don't learn that until you look back on it. So my question is, what is your sort of experience? You can relate it to, you know, your relationship with your father, and how maybe it changed you. I'm just speaking for myself too, as the way I'm a father to my kids.
Yeah. Well, I think I wanted to not be my dad, the opposite of my dad, which is what every generation does, right? Like, just I'm going to give my kids the exact opposite, and then they go too far in that other direction. Right. But, you know, I think my dad, which I talk about in the book, grew up in the Chicago area. Well, that's part of his childhood was in Louisiana, and he was a salesman who did business forms and had an office, I believe, in West Chicago, and he had one in Hinsdale, kind of moved around a lot. He was actually skilled at what he did, something that you can do on a computer nowadays at home. But back then, if you wanted to make a form for a hospital or a big company, they would say, we need these, it's the most boring thing ever. But we need it to look like this.
Just listen.
Listen closely. And you'll be so thankful for computers again. I'm so glad none of those jobs exist. No one has to do that shit. But he was really good, and it took a lot of skill. And if he hadn't been a drinker and a sloppy person, I mean, he was just kind of irresponsible guy. And kind of immature, and he wasn't around much. And so, I mean, it's all about, as a dad, I just wanted to be there for my kids. As the second oldest of 7, I had little kids around me, and I loved them, and I thought they were awesome. And I knew I wanted to have kids in my life, and I wanted to be there for them and give them attention and laugh and be with them because they're funny as hell. It's the funnest thing ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it would be that. It would just be to be the opposite of my own father.
And when you were younger, I know I did, was I became more entertaining for my mother and for my brothers and sisters. And like I learned, like just even...
How many kids?
I had the youngest of 6.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm 7.
Yeah.
Second oldest. And it's funny, Colbert, I was on Colbert the other day, and he's 11. He's the youngest of 11.
Yeah, yeah.
And, well...
The more kids, the funnier you are.
Honestly, I didn't feel like I had to do it at all. I think, you know, comedy is a lot of things.
I don't feel like I had to do it either. I think I naturally did it because I just wanted to like elevate what was going on in the
energy.
House. You know what I mean? I don't think it was a conscious effort.
And I think that's what I did too. And that's what really all the kids in our family did. But I definitely did. And my brother Bill, who's a writer, wrote for The Simpsons for years, and now he and I are on a project together. Yeah, it was really about it. We all made each other laugh and goofed around a lot, laughed, and were very silly.
Belly laughs.
Yeah, and silly. Yeah. And because this thing that's around you, this energy that's around you is so uncomfortable, and you can't do anything about it. You can't solve the problems of the family.
Right.
You don't even really know what they are. There's like something going on, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah. Let's go. Can we mind if we just keep moving on?
Okay.
Yeah,
Keep going.
So let's talk about okay. So you got into comedy. You started doing some stand-up, but you didn't feel really it was your thing at that time.
Yeah, I never did. I mean, I love Steve Martin's stand-up.
Right.
Because, like, in my estimation, his stand-up was kind of like a sketch version of stand-up.
Yeah.
It was like conceptualized stand-up. So I love that. There's something about sketch that I love. You and I both have good friends who love stand-up like, you know, it's their religion.
Right.
And so we know lots of people like that. And that never was me. And I guess I feel like stand-up feels more limited to me. The first challenge with a stand-up act, and I did a lot of stand-up in the Chicago area because the stand-up boom happened when I was 21, around there, and there were all these clubs. There were no clubs, you know, there was like 4 clubs, 3, 4, and then there were 14 within like a year. And then not only that, like every bar had a comedy night.
Yeah.
So you could make $20, you know, every night, maybe 40, do 2 of them.
Right.
And I could get booked as the opener at an all-weekend club. And so I could write some jokes and waste 15 minutes of the audience's time. And fuck yeah, I'll do it. And but yeah, I could never hone my voice. Which is, I think, the first thing you got to either naturally do or find your way to. Right. And I just couldn't do it. Like I want to.
It's harder when you're doing conceptual stuff. Also,
yeah.
It's harder to get the audience to know who you really are because you never really are being yourself. You're always just doing, different.
Well, I would mix it up. I would like talk about some thing in the real world that annoyed me or whatever. Then I would do a joke that was totally conceptual, like Stephen Wright-ish. And then I would do a character voice and just ramble in a character voice. And it's just a mess. It's like, pick one thing and go there and stay there.
Yeah.
Because that's what stand-up is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it.
Yeah. But you eventually took those things that you learned and started doing one-man shows.
Well, that was kind of a thought I had because I like Bob Newhart, and I recognized that he did sort of what I liked. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bob Newhart comedy album. But his comedy albums are little sketches that he monologues through. And, they're very written, and some of them could be played as a sketch, I think. And so it was very interesting. He was very different from everybody else. I'm not really sure if anyone did anything act like him.
I don't think so.
So it was a very unique act.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And I also saw Eric Bogosian at the ETC Theater. Do you know who Eric Bogosian is? And he did a one-man show called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll that was solo pieces. It was just him on stage the whole show, and he's doing characters that are kind of interconnected. And I thought there's something in between Bob Newhart and Eric Bogosian that I would like to do. So I'm alone on stage. It's more actorly than Bob Newhart, who just talks. But it's kind of like Newhart. It's dry. It exists for comedy's sake. Eric's stuff was funny, but it was at theater, meant to be kind of have more depth or more sensitive characterization. Mine was like, let's be funny, find a joke, and then just beat the shit out of it until everyone's sick of it. So yeah, that's what I did. I did that show at the ETC, and Joyce Sloan let me use the ETC Theater for the summer, which is crazy because I wasn't a Second City person. I hadn't gone up through the ranks. I don't even know how she knew who I was, but Tom Giannis directed it. And so Tom had a relationship over there at Second City.
Right.
So he got us in there. But that was my show that was like Newhart and Bogosian.
Yeah. It was really fun too, man.
Well, thanks. It was called Half My Face is a Clown.
Yeah.
And the picture was half my face painted as a clown. So if you like that, you would like the show.
Let's jump around. I want to talk about Second City and stuff. And I mean, we both, worked with Farley and got to know him. And one of the things you talk about in
Tim,
the book.
I was surprised at how much I wrote about Chris.
You're surprised how much you did write?
How much I did write.
It obviously meant a lot
it did.
to you, man.
Yeah.
And obviously, Chris had an effect on everybody that worked with him and stuff, and especially because he left us too soon. Also, like the story is sort of unfinished. You know what I mean? And so, like the things that we are sort of grabbing at and remembering, they're more precious now. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, there's two things that I think I can attribute to me having cared and thought and felt so much about Chris. One, my dad was an alcoholic, and when I finally understood what alcoholism was, my mom took me to Al-Anon meetings when I was around 11 and 12, and that was really great. It was really great to hear a name for what was going on and to hear other people tell stories that, oh, that's like my dad. Okay, oh, that's what's happening. But from that point on, from when I knew, I always had a part of me that was really tender about people with alcohol issues. When I was around them and I could sense it, I would almost start crying. And I didn't even know him that well. I had a roommate in college, and he was an alcoholic at in college. And it really made me emotional just to be around him.
Right.
So I always had that. So when I got to know Chris, and you didn't have to know him too long to understand what was happening on that side of the equation, you know, I was in that space when I was around him. But secondly, Chris shared a lot of his soul with the audience immediately, all the time, and with everybody around him. You did feel close to him very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was those two things. Like, I said it on Stern the other day, and it really just came to me when I was talking to him, because Howard was like, we didn't really get to know Chris. And I said, I think you did. I mean, you saw him perform. Even if you saw him in a few things, you knew that guy.
You basically saw him, yeah. His public persona and his private persona were pretty much the same. It was you know, a little bit more amped up in public.
The Chris Farley show scene that Smigel wrote on SNL.
Yeah.
That was Chris.
That was an aspect of him.
Yeah.
The humility and like, because we used to give him shit about it, because we used to say he was faking it when he would be like, what's it like being in the Beatles, Paul McCartney, you know? And you'd be like, come on, man, you don't have to act that way. Like, we're all adults. But he was genuinely like being like, wow, I can't believe I'm here, you know? But let's talk about...
Did you read the part about Chris?
Yes, yeah.
What'd you think?
I thought it was accurate.
I mean, I think you were closer to him than I was.
Yeah, I mean, the stories that you tell in the book, we all have those stories where it's like, I don't know what else to do with you, you know? And I had it too, where I was like, I love this dude, but I can't save him. I can't make him do what I want him to do because it's out of my control. And it sort of hurt, you know? Yeah. But on the other side, let's talk about Matt Foley.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you guys know this sketch? It's a sketch. It was called The Motivational Speaker, and it was actually a character that Chris would do in improv sets with the cast, and we all loved it, but he could never really figure out what the character was. And then Bob...
Well, we were improvising. It was like an anti-drug speech that we were doing. We were doing a faculty at a high school, and I did a teacher or whatever. And it was based on a suggestion, I think. And Chris did Matt Foley as a coach. And, well, I just went home that night, and I had been listening to Tony Robbins cassettes. So this is an element of writing that character. And that was a new thing. Like, a motivational speaker was kind of a new thing people were talking about and learning about. And Tony Robbins, didn't he say, like, I was a mess? Yeah, like, that's his story. Like, and I remember that stuck in my head. Like, it was first hard to picture that he was a total mess at one point, but whatever. I'm sure he was, whatever. But just, I thought, what about a person who uses themselves as the negative example? But in the present. You want to be like me right now?
Let me tell you about my life right now.
Right now. And then just another little detail, but it all just popped into my head. I'm from Naperville. There's a DuPage River, and when I was a kid, my mom would occasionally, as a treat, take us to Burger King, and we would go over the river, and the stoners from high school would hang out on the river bridge. And I just had this image of the guy pulling up with his van there, and just, that's where he's going to live now. And so all that came to my head. And Tim, I've written thousands of sketches, and probably 6 or 8 of them were done the way I wrote them, the first time I wrote them. Because everything needs to be fixed and rewritten, always. But there's a few. Manson Lassie on Ben Stiller's show. The Great Fallujah.
Mr. Show.
I mean, they stick in your head because, like, never happens. And Matt Foley was what I wrote down on the legal pad.
From your head to the paper.
Except for Smigel added breaking the table.
Oh, on the show. On
We
SNL.
couldn't do that. We couldn't do that at Second City.
Right.
But at Second City, it ended with Chris going, "I'm going to go get my things. I'll be right back." And because I'm sick of living in a van down by the river. And then he leaves, and the dad goes, "Run, everybody hide."
Yeah, lock the door. One of my favorite lines in that sketch was when you would say, "Kids, have a seat. I have a motivational speaker that's going to come out here and talk to you. He's been down in the basement drinking coffee for the last 4 hours." And I always felt that line, especially on SNL, that it was sort of overlooked. Because when you brought the sketch to us, that was a really important note, was that you have to know that he's been in the basement drinking coffee for 4 hours, and he's a little excited to get out here and perform for you, was another line. And so we were all like, oh, this is going to be fun, you know? And we've talked about this before, but like literally the funniest thing I got to see every fucking night was watching Farley do motivational speaker and sitting in the chair and watching him. It was so much fun.
My daughter asked me what's the most fun you ever had in show business when she was like 7 or 8 years old. And I immediately said I did this sketch with this guy.
Yeah.
And every time he did it, every night was the most fun I've ever had in show business.
It was just nuts.
Yeah.
He used to whip his glasses, he would whip his and throw his glasses to the side, like off stage. He would grab me and pick me up because I was his son, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna be living together, me and you, buddy." Fucking rolling me around in the air, and it was just so he would sweat every night. Like, and you knew he knows the sketch. He knows where it is in the running order. He knows what he has to do to get ready for it. But he would fucking give you 110% every fucking night, man. It was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing.
And how about this, Tim? That feeling, I remember standing there because I played the dad at Second City. I remember standing there and thinking, as the sketch is going on, there's how many people sit in Second City?
300, something like that?
300 people went from, these are some funny young people, to I love that guy for the rest of my life. In 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you were there while that happened.
Yeah.
And you knew that everyone in that room was a Chris Farley fan for the rest of their lives.
And we had a really great cast. We had a great show, but I mean, it was obvious to everybody that, he was the main dude. Well, I would love to keep jumping because you got such a long, amazing career, Mr. Show, Gary Shandling Show, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. So
it's all in the book.
But we're going to take some questions now from the audience. So who has a question for us?
I'm curious about your relationship with Chicago. Did you want to leave? Did you feel like you had to leave for your career? Would you ever come back?
Well, I come back a lot because my mom passed away a few months ago, but she was here and my 2 sisters still live here. Yeah, it was sad to say goodbye to her, but she had a great life. And so I do come back, and I will continue to. And who knows, maybe even live here again. My wife loves coming here, and she comes here more often than I do to scout talent. It was, the weird thing is that I didn't feel like a Chicagoan when I left here when I was 25 to go write at Saturday Night Live. And over the years, even though, like when I was in New York, I'd go to every Bears game at a sports bar, and I get the MLB app and I watch every Cubs game that I can, which is almost every one. I just didn't feel like a Chicagoan when I left. I was like, I never understood that vibe, but maybe you do have to leave sometimes to feel that way. But over the years, I've seen and felt like, well, fuck yeah, I'm a Chicagoan for sure. Like, I don't know, it's meeting, I don't know, living in other cities, and you go, That's where I'm from. That's how I see the world.
Right.
And I love that place. So.
Yeah, I feel like I'm an adopted Chicagoan.
Well, you're from Detroit.
I'm from Detroit.
So
yeah.
It's not. It's in the sphere of influence.
Yeah, we share
the gravity. The whatever.
I don't know, we hated each other in basketball. That's the only thing. I'm gonna take one more question, and then we have 3 more questions. But these are questions that Bob would like for you to ask him. So we're gonna take one more question from someone with their own question.
Yeah.
It's me, Betsy Shepard. Hi, Bob and
Hi.
Tim.
Oh, hey,
Yes.
Betsy.
I like Bob. I've known Bob since the 80s. I'd like you to tell everybody about the comedy troupes you did with Conan and Smigel back in the day.
Oh, that's nice. Hi. So when I was in my first year at Saturday Night Live, I wrote a lot with Robert Smigel. I really was, I think, hired to just help him and be his pal because we'd worked together on the phone while he was there his first 2 years. And then Conan O'Brien and Greg Daniels got hired 4 shows after I got hired. And we all connected and we all write together. And then that season got abruptly ended by a writer's strike. So we had some sketches we hadn't gotten on the air because we weren't getting much on the air. And we said, let's go to Chicago and do a show at Victory Gardens called Happy, Happy, Good Show. And in that show was the Bears fans, the super fans. And in the year 2000, and we did an improvisational puppet troupe with a Dell character. And it was very inside. But it was fun to do, and it was a great, silly show that ran all summer, and they also had the nude beach sketch in it, which later went to SNL when Matthew Broderick was there.
That's very cool. I'm going to pass out questions. You had a question first.
Yeah, go ahead.
And are these in order? You want these in this order?
Yeah.
Okay. So you come and ask this question. Here's
Bob.
you got to read this question. You're not asking questions, but hold on before you read it.
I'm not taking a chance on you asking me some crazy shit.
Okay, so first question.
Let's hear it. What do you want to ask me? Anything. Anything that's on that page.
I haven't read your book, and I don't plan to, but I wanted to congratulate you on writing it and ask simply this. My favorite kind of writing is when someone overuses cliched terms and phrases, or even just reuses words too often in close proximity. Does your book use this technique?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Yes. That is exactly the technique that I use in the book.
All right, I need another who has a question?
Two, is
you
there
come
another
here.
question?
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
You are wonderful. My question for you is, do you hate writing or yourself more?
Well, I'm going to give you an honest answer to that. Before my heart attack, I would have said myself. But I definitely hate writing more. And I love writing, but I hate it more than myself. Because I think the heart attack made me think I'm very lucky and I should value this life that I have.
That's great.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, one more question. The guy here with your hand up. Yes, you, T-shirt. Come on up here.
I am a young person. I want to fail a lot at my favorite thing to do. Will your book show me how to do that? If so, could you crystallize your approach to repetitive failure so I could just skim the book? Also, can you recommend a good book to read?
Okay, so you like to fail a lot at the thing you like best in the world. Yes, my book will show you how to do that. It'll give you a very specific program. If you follow it, you can achieve that. And can I recommend a good book to read? Kind of rude, but Olga Tokarczuk Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. Great book. Great book. Olga Tokarczuk. I'm not kidding. Fucking amazing. Thank you.
Thanks. This is not his first time writing a book. He has another book that's called Load of Hooey. Hey. And would you like to preface this?
I just wanted to end with something meaningful. And there's a poem in here that I wrote a few years ago that says a lot about who I am, and I thought I could read it to you to say goodnight to you tonight. I'll say thank you again for coming and for buying my book. I hope you enjoy it. Please share it with people around you. And I want to thank my good friend Tim Meadows for hosting. Any excuse to see my friend Tim Meadows, I will take. I'll write a whole nother book just so I can sit and talk to this guy. The best. Okay. This is called A Meaningful Poem. The title of the poem is If I Had My Life to Live Over Again. If I had my life to live over again, I'd dare to make more mistakes. I'd risk more, go out on a limb. I'd take longer walks and feed the ducks in the park. I'd wear thicker socks and eat more ice cream. More ice cream and a better brand of ice cream with a higher fat count. Gourmet ice cream. In fact, I would stick mostly to gelato. I would notice every bird and give it a name, and I'd write that name in a tiny notebook. But let me return to the issue of ice cream. I wouldn't confine myself to national brands. I would travel the countryside eating the regional equivalent of premium ice cream. If I were eating ice cream with you, I would steal yours when you looked away. If you never looked away, I would badger you through the entire feast. Are you going to finish that? I'll finish that if you don't, until you gave in. For you see, I have been one of those people who eats an entire box of light ice cream with fewer calories, who orders 3 scoops of ice cream and says, make one of them sorbet, who offers to share the death by chocolate dessert. I have even eaten an entire box of dietetic ice cream sandwiches in one sitting. What was I thinking? I should have just eaten the regular kind of ice cream sandwiches. I have even eaten popsicles when there was a Haagen-Dazs right nearby. I did that twice. Believe me, I remember. But if I had to do it all over again, I would eat even more, and I can't restate this enough, a higher fat count. In fact, forget that shit I said about walking in the park and naming birds. If I had my life to live over again, I would focus on the getting and eating of ice cream. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming out tonight. I hope you like the book. Have a great evening. I'll see you again.
Bob Odenkirk, everybody. Let's hear it for Bob.
And that was Bob Odenkirk with Tim Meadows at the Chicago Humanities Spring Festival from 2022. I hope you enjoyed that one. I had a lot of fun curating that for you. Big shout out to the team at Chicago Humanities. We've got excellent programmers and production staff who are just picking the coolest stuff for you to check out and making it sound great. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Oh, it's a spicy one. We've got the really wonderful chat between international best-selling writer Anand Girdadas and political journalist David Korn on the big question, is the public still persuadable? Girdadas talks about the book he recently wrote, The Persuaders, all about the people you don't see who are persuading our government at the highest levels. And he also gives just wonderful tips for people who are interested in progressive organizing. So if that is you, be sure to check this one out. It's a great chat. Chicago Humanities Tapes is produced and hosted by me, Alisa Rosenthal, with tons of support from the wonderful folks at Chicago Humanities. Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe, available wherever you stream your podcasts, and our website, chicagohumanities.org. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay human.